So now I'm officially recording. So anything you don't want to say, now's the time not to say. Could you please state your full name?
Edith Greenwood.
And where were you born?
Dundas, Ontario.
And what year?
1924.
What's your earliest childhood memory?
I don't know, really, other than going to church, the first thing I remember doing.
What do you remember about that, going to church?
Oh, yeah. As a little child, a little 5-year-old. First day at school.
What was that like?
Fun.
Yeah.
Had the nicest nun I think I ever had.
Where did you go to school?
St. Augustine's in Dundas.
How long have you lived in Dundas?
All my life.
Yeah.
91 years. Oh, almost 91 years.
What's kept you here?
Family. I like my town. It's very important to me. I like to see people as they've grown up, from little children to adults, and watch what they have done. I like to see the town grow. And the people that we have here are perfect.
What do you like about them?
Everything. They're my people. They're Dundas.
Who took care of you growing up?
My mother and father.
What did they do?
Oh, my father worked at the quarry as a child when I was little, and my mother was a homemaker.
What did your father do at the quarry?
Oh, running the stone crushers and trucking the stones into Hamilton and whatnot that they needed for building. It was in, I guess, just a few years ago they closed that off.
Superintendent?
Hired and fired.
What was that?
He said he was the superintendent he hired and fired.
No, he was. He was what?
He hired people.
Oh gosh, I don't know that. He'd be a lot. I couldn't tell you how many. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, but he did.
Yeah. All I remember is trucking up my feet up the hill to take his lunch up to his lunch with his lunch pail. When I was about 8 or 9 and 10 and did that, that was quite a trip.
How long would that take you then, that walk?
Well, I guess my mother was tired in the mornings, but she'd have all the housework to do and that, and 3 children, and father would get up and he'd have to be at work at 6 o'clock, so he'd say, oh, well, hon, never mind, just send one of the kids up with my lunch. Well, that was great, climbing up the hill, and, but that was Dundas. Because we used to live right up beside the quarry, and then we moved our house up onto Witherspoon Street.
Why did you move?
Well, the quarry took over the property. And they moved the houses that wanted. There was only a few houses up in there. And then we moved up to Witherspoon Street. And Depression time, people were looking for work, and lots of people lost their jobs. And he didn't have it anymore up there, and it was quite a hard business working in a quarry. It wasn't easy. And when he came up, we lived on Witherspoon Street, they started having things for children because people just didn't have the money to do all kinds of things like they do today. I mean, today you look at what they have, you wonder, well, how did we ever survive? That's the thing we think about. At least I do anyway. And he ran the first Dundas ice rink out there on Witherspoon in Melville.
How did he get into that?
Well, I think it was our town fathers, our council of the day. People were worrying about their children and the war coming up. So they decided, they got to do something with the children there. I mean, people were poor. A lot of them were poor. And they had to have some recreation, not like it is today. Everything you do is wonderful for their recreation. They have things today that we would never even think of having, and teaching young people to, what would you say, learn to live with what you have. And that's what you did in those days. You didn't have that much. It was Depression plus. That's about how I can say it was Depression plus.
How did your parents meet?
I don't know. I never had that information. All I know, my mother was a country girl. My father was a city slicker, as we used to say. He liked the town. He didn't like the country. So, where they met, I can't remember that. I don't think they ever said.
What differences did you notice in the area that you grew up in, Dundas, as opposed to other areas of Dundas?
Around our town?
Yeah, and around the area.
Well, we were closed in.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And we didn't have the recreational facilities. Like they had the old skating rink in Hamilton. It was undercover. You could skate and roller skate in the summertime. You had the Alexandra, the roller skating club up by the hospital. And we didn't have that in Dundas. You made your own fun.
What kind of fun would you make?
Well, we used to go to the park a lot. It was
Park?
Dundas Park, oh yes. Oh, that was a meeting place for everything. For everybody and everywhere. People came here. It was a cozy little town. And they made people feel comfortable. And you felt like you had a nice place to let your children run and play and still have the luxuries of swinging and slides and whatnot. And a pool. We had a nice little pool there. I didn't like it at first when they said they were going to change the park. I really didn't.
Why not?
Because that's where we played. And I thought, oh, they're going to pull it all apart. It won't be anything like we had. It sure wasn't. It's something more beautiful than I ever expected to see. I couldn't believe it. I thought, I should talk to one of the counselors about that. You're killing everything up there that we had. But they weren't. You could see it now. If you'd seen it then and know it now, what a difference. It's beautiful. I have people come here in Dundas, people that I know and people that are my relations, and they go up to the Dundas Park and they think it's wonderful. I said, well, it always was. I can't take that away from them. But modernization comes in. New people move to town. And when the new people come in, they come in with ideas. And a lot of us old stodgy old people as we are today, oh, we don't like that. We don't change our town. But that's moving forward. And if you don't have it, you're going to sit and be nothing. And I don't think Dundas should have to have that. I think Dundas is a beautiful town. It's my town. I own it. That's how I feel. And anything I do, I always say, why don't you have it in the Dundas Park? It's gorgeous up there. Have you ever been to our Dundas Park?
I've been once now.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous. I only actually, when I started working, I just kind of drove around. And
Yeah, uh-huh.
And it is gorgeous.
Oh, it is. It is absolutely wonderful. And then we used to have the Webster's Falls Park. They turned that into a beautiful place up there. I mean, and we just sit in the middle of it. We're right here. we don't really appreciate what we got now. We had beauties before, but this is something else.
Why don't you share with Devin about the little boy that you saved when you were the tiny little girl?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Back in the beginning of the war, they were people like we were married, in 1940, but just previous to that, people from the city would come out here to Dundas with their children to play at the neighbors or up in the park, and then they'd come back to the neighbors and have their little whatever, lunches and whatnot. And one day I was out in the yard and I heard this screaming and yelling, and I thought, oh my God, what is happening? And I looked over at my neighbors, and no, they were throwing their arms up in the air. They were all excited. Some of them were crying and crying. I thought, what's the matter? I ran over to them. What's the matter? What's wrong? My baby, my baby. I said, your baby? Where's your baby? My baby, he down the well. I looked. I said, down in the well? What's he doing down there? And this little old lady, she says, I don't know. He's down there. Look. And I looked down, and here's this baby floating on top of the water. And I'm looking, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's dead. No, he wasn't. So I said to my sister and the lady next door to us, I said, here, hold my feet, and I'll go down and get him. And they said, you'll what? I said, hold my feet, I'll go down and get him. And I was about, 98 pounds in those days, if I was lucky, soaking wet. So anyway, I said, put me down and I'll hang on to my feet. And they put me down the well. My one sister held my one leg, and the other lady held my other leg, and down I went. And I just grabbed him like that by the little rompers on the belt and pulled him up. And the mother was just screaming. She was so scared, she thought he was dead. I did too. I thought, there he's dead. What in heaven's name? How could he get down in a well? Well, somebody had left the lid off the well. And he was out in the yard playing. And like little children, they looked down. And he tumbled into it. And I don't know how, he was just floating on top of the water, but we got him out. And I thought, oh my God, if I ever do this again. It just does something to you. I don't know what it is. You just, all you can think about is that little thing, little hand down there. And I thought he was just a baby. When she said my baby, I thought, oh, he's only a baby. He's only this long. He wasn't a big child. She says, oh, he was 2 years old. I thought, 2 years old? Why do you let him play around in the backyard like that, But that was really frightening.
Did you see him grow up at all? Did you ever see him after that?
Haven't seen him since. No. It was kept quiet. Because the mother was afraid if she said anything to her husband about it, he wouldn't allow her to come there anymore. And they were her relations, her friends and whatnot. But I don't know where all the people came from. All of a sudden, everybody's in the backyard, and they're all saying, what's happening? And, it was frightening. Terrible thing. And I thought after, boy, why don't they close these wells out and get rid of them? I don't know whether they ever did. I think it's still there in the old place next to where we lived. Yeah, that bothered me for a long time. A little tot playing by itself, and just down it goes. So that was not a good experience, but it certainly made you think a little bit, I'll tell you, for a while. I never forgot about it until one of my friends said to me at my 90th birthday, she said, do you remember, Edie, when you had the baby out of the well? I said, how did you find out? She said, oh, they told my mother. And I hadn't been talking to her in years. I hadn't seen her for years. I said, I didn't think anybody knew anything about it. She said, oh yeah. She says, we all knew. Can you turn that off for a minute?
Yeah. There we go. And I don't want to miss anything that I...
Yeah.
Right? But I will gladly turn it off anytime.
Yeah,
you want
okay.
To, so don't worry about that.
But that was really an experience that I don't ever want to see happen again. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And I often look at little kids when they're running around, the parents are, oh, they're here, they're there, and all. Hang on to them. Hang on to them. You know, it can happen so quickly. And this woman, she was a lovely little lady, and you knew, you know, she didn't leave her little babies alone, but just somebody left the lid off the hood, off the well. That was all, and down it went. And kids are nosy. They have to see. They want to look. They're very inquisitive. And being that age, he was just a toddler, you know, just a baby. I thought, oh no, never again. I don't want to go through that. But that was really, I think that was one of the worst things I think I ever encountered. Even more so than the train track that had up on the hill there beside us. Yeah, our house was just down below that, and oh, it was terrible. People were climbing up the hills, and terrible mess, just a mess.
Can you talk more about it?
Pardon?
Can you talk more about it? Do you remember the accident?
The part of that, I was skating on the rink. I remember skating, and everybody was flocking to see this fire. Then why, you know, you could see it from downhill. And my mother says, you don't go up that hill. I said, I can't go. I got my skates on. She says, well, you're not taking them off. You're not going up that hill. And up people were just climbing up. They
What did you do with the bodies?
didn't know how many bodies were going to pick up, you know. But the flames were terrible. It was an awful mess.
Did they not use the district school as high school as a
No, it wasn't up at the high school,
was above it?
right behind our house.
Yeah. But didn't they use the high school as a morgue or something?
Oh, yeah, I think they did. They didn't, they kind of kept it quiet. They kept it quiet. People that knew lived just around there like we did. We saw it happening. We were all skating, having a great time. And all of a sudden you saw this fire, and that was it. Just a crash. Heard a crash, and you looked up and all this fire. Oh my God. People were coming out of their houses and going to look to see what was happening. And it was scary. Very scary. And I felt so sorry for the people that lived right on the bottom of the hill, because we were on the street beside it. We were away a little bit, and everybody said, oh my God, they're going to roll the thing right over into the hill. It's going to come down the hill, but they didn't. I think that's what they were afraid of. But I was about, what was that, in 1940, be built 19, was it 36, 37? Something like that.
36 or
Pardon?
34, 36, or 37. I know it's around.
Was it 34? Was it that far
I
back?
think so, but again,
You see, I haven't got the date on that either, but I know I was skating. That was all I remember, and I thought, I don't want to go up and see this. I stayed away from it.
So you're in your early teens.
It's frightening for children to see stuff like that. And I don't know how many were killed. The first report was, oh, everybody's okay, everybody's okay. You know, well, thank God for that, because it sends people down. But then they started finding a few. And
Pete, like, what was the town like after that? Like the days after that happened?
well, I don't know, what do you mean by what that were they like. It made you think. I'll tell you that. It made them think a lot. How are we going to stop this sort of thing? And how did this happen in the first place? And I suppose the railway companies and whatnot got into it. I was very young, I know that. I was out of the bob skate stage, and I was wearing skates, so I was more than 5 or 6 years old, but not that old. And that was a bad thing, really bad. I don't know. Then we had other problems when we didn't have water in Dundas. We used to pump it in, bring it in trucks from Hamilton, because our dam had gone dry up at the golf club there. Do you know where the golf club is?
A little bit. I haven't
Yeah, up at the far end. And it went dry, so they used to have the trucks coming in with water. Oh, 2 pails of water you got. I often wonder how we even survived. And the kids would say, oh, well, we have to have water. We got to have water. We're thirsty. Turn on your tap, there's no water. So that wasn't a very good time. We had a rough time with that. And what was the other thing I remembered about?
How long was Dundas without water?
Hmm?
How long was Dundas without water?
Oh, I don't remember the year, how many years. It was more than a year, I know that. But I don't think it was not too much longer than that. And they'd come around with the ice truck. You remember they used to have an ice house down on the canal. And they made their own ice. And they'd chop it up. And the trucks would get it and bring it up to your house if you wanted. If you had an ice box. And you got a chunk of ice. And we'd be behind the trucks bringing the ice in to the people that wanted it. And you had to pay, what was it, 10 or 15 cents for ice. We'd be around picking up the chips. Oh, we were so thirsty.
How did Dundas get water after that?
Well, they put their lines through
From?
Hamilton. And then they went out also. Hamilton went on up to Port Dover, Caledonia. They had a line through there. I don't know whether they still have that extended or not. They were talking about extending it, but I don't know whether they did or not. That's part of the story that I never really got from the family. Just stuff I read on it. And I remember them saying, well, we got to go out there and get some water. And we got to have water, so that was a big thing for the council. Council had a lot of rough times. People didn't put their money out to use it like they do today to further the town. They didn't. People held on to it. They had to. It was a depression. They'd come through it, and a war on top. Isn't it always the same? You have a war, they can find money. But when there isn't a war, you live. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It bothers me because I think, well, if you've got the money, then keep things going. Don't have this business of unemployment and depressions and all that. I don't like the looks of the world today the way it is. It's not healthy. I mean, the kind of war we're going to have in the next one, and then we will have it, what kind of a war is it going to be? What's it going to do to the people then? What are we going to be like? How are we going to survive? I won't be here at 91 years of age. I don't want to be here and not go through something like that. I went through the last war, and that's enough for me.
What was that like?
Terrible. I mean, I wasn't in the war or anything like that. I was just a volunteer for anything that went on, but I didn't go in it. But the memories of it is not good. And now they keep bringing it back, bringing it back. somebody said to me one day, I don't know where I was, somewhere shopping or something, and they said, what do you think about all these things that are going on today? I said, I think people are crazy. They can't be satisfied being happy. They have to have a fight. They got to be fighting about something. There's always a war. And over a war, I don't know what they think they gather for. What's good from it? Maybe there is. I haven't seen it yet.
Did they ration food stamps and things like that?
Which?
Food stamps, or like was things rationed?
Oh, yes, we had rationing. Oh, my God, yeah. Coupons. I used to, when your brother, your oldest brother, Bill's 72 now, he said, when he was a baby, I used to bring him home from Toronto. I lived in Toronto for a year when Walter was stationed there in the barracks. And I'd bring him home, and you didn't have coupons to buy sugar. And you had to have your formulas made up, they tell you at the hospital, do this, do that. I thought, oh, Christmas, what am I going to do? Take the baby home, we won't have enough coupons for other things. You only had so many per person. So a fellow, I don't know whether you've talked to anybody, but over at the museum, people by the name of Lang's store, the George Lang that had a grocery store in town. He was a dear old guy, an old bachelor, but he was just wonderful. And he used to say to my mother-in-law, you just tell that Walter's little wife that she doesn't need to worry about having the, corn syrup I had to put in his bottle for Bill. And he says, he doesn't need to worry about her coupons. You just tell her to come down here and see me. I got lots of honey out in the back. And he used to have a honey apiary out in the back behind the store. And that's where Huey Walker and all the lower stores down by the corner there on Cross Street. And he'd have all these things, and he'd say, oh, she can come down. My mom says, oh, yeah, I'll tell her. He says, well, send her down. I'll tell her she can have them. And he says, she doesn't need coupons to have baby for the sugar. He says, I'll give her the honey from out of the hives at the back. And he had all these hives. And this Mary Lang that I just spoke about, that was his niece. And she was great over here at the museum. Well, she died, was it 3 years ago? And she came up to me one day and she says, Edith, I don't think anybody in this town knows anything about Dundas. I said, what do you mean? You know. She says, yeah, but she says, you and I and a few others our age are the only ones that are left. I said, well, thanks a lot. I'm glad to hear that. She says, I think we should get together and just find out what's going on. She says, you ought to go over to the museum with me. I said, oh, no, I'm not. I'm not going over there. I said, I've lived some of it. I don't want to go into it. She says, so did I. So then I told her about her uncle giving me the coupons. And I said, a lot of people didn't know him that well. He didn't circulate. He was an old bachelor, from the farm and the land they owned and all that in town. Lots of pieces of little lands and put together. They made a big one, where the Cattell Funeral Home was. That's where she was when she was a child. Mary says, people don't understand how this town was built. I said, it was built like every other town. You settle there. You have children, they grow, they settle there, they don't go anywhere. They come back and they come back and they come back. You have the whole family there. I said, that's the way they grow. She says, oh gosh, you have no idea. I said, no, I don't. She said, you ought to come over to the museum, you ought to find out. I said, I know I should, but I said, I know that they haven't got everything straight over there either, because new people coming in, they listen to what some of the people think they know about Dundas, which is right. And I only know too because I lived here, but I also had family here. And sometimes they get it twisted a little bit. And who's to say whether we're right or wrong? They give what they think is right, what they've been told. So that's what you hand on. And my kids laugh at me, and it's mostly Mark and Beverly because I live here. And Mary, when she'd come here for dinner, we'd sit and talk, and she'd say things about this person and that family and this family. And I said, oh, yeah, but did you know this? What about? Oh, she said, I didn't know anything about that. And we'd sit and laugh about it, and they'd be killing themselves out here in the dining room listening to us. And I thought Mary was, she wanted to talk. She was older. She was 7 years older than me. And she always wanted to talk about old Dundas. So this is how you get your information. And she says, you should go over with me to the museum. She says, I just try to tell them that they don't have everything right. I said, Mary, let them go. What difference does it make? It's not going to make any difference. It's over. You did it then. You're not going to do it again. Just leave it. And, have it that way. Leave it the way they want it. But I think she said, Andrea said, you and Beverly, you're the one that got me into this. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
I like to know the history of Dundas. I like to know, things like the Roxy Theatre, where it was before.
Oh,
It's part of plenty now.
well, Dad, Grampy.
Grampy, yeah.
Yeah, he built a lot, the Roxy Theatre. It's what do you call it, the Horn of Plenty now. I remember going to the first show at the Roxy Theatre. I was 5 years old. And they used to have the minstrel show, what they call the minstrel show. And Mr. What is it, Mr. What do they call the end men on the minstrel shows? Mr. Executor, Mr. something. I can't think of it. Anyway, and I can still remember that because my father was holding me on his knee and we're listening to the program, and they put on a real musical, put on shows and that. And it was the beginning of the whole thing. And I started crying. Somebody said, Mr. Executor or something like that. Yes, sir, he says, and that was it. And off went the gunshot. Oh, I just screamed and hollered. I never forgot it. 5 years old. And I said, what did you take me there for? He says, well, everybody was going. Everybody in town went there because the music hall was older, so they thought they had a new theater and it was going to be movies. The movies were hilarious because the movies would be on, but nobody talked. You just had a silent movie. And you had to read it. The parents had to read it so the kids would know what the stories were all about. But that part of it, I didn't mind. But when the gun went off, I was petrified. And I thought, what a silly thing to do. But that was the time of the way they did things. And they always had big shows there, big programs and, town things. People in the town, they got together, storekeepers and people in business. They got together and that was the meeting place. And then you'd have your little skit that they'd put on and sell tickets, and everybody would buy because, whoa, it's nice, we're going to see a show tonight or this weekend or whatever. Well, then movies, the talkies came in. So that did away with a lot of it. But they still liked their good shows. When we had good shows there. Same as at the music hall. Same thing there. The music hall, I think, is all apartments now, isn't it now? The whole thing? Yes, inside?
Yes, there's nothing redone.
Nothing else.
All
I haven't been in there for...
From, what do you want to call it?
The hotels, yeah.
Central Hotel, Melbourne Hotel, which our office is now right next to the post office.
Okay, right there.
Come
Yeah.
in. coming,
Side street, Foundry.
yeah, coming east. Yeah, coming east this way.
Yeah, and we had an indoor skating rink.
Where's that? Oh, the arena.
Yeah, no. Before the arena, we had one on Hat Street where they had the bowling alley. So
So it's
they're all gone.
large Quonset hut? A large Quonset hut type thing right beside the fire hall. It's like a big barn.
Yeah.
That was an indoor skating rink. Who
Yep.
put that together?
They built that one after they had the first one down on, what is the street down, Dundas Street. They had one down there first. And then that, I don't know what would happen to it, but they ended up having another one further up in the town when they had the post office. So, I don't know who ran that.
Then it became a bus company after that, didn't it?
I don't know.
Wasn't it a bus company after that?
I don't know what happened to it.
Wasn't it Jim Greatmeyer and his bus?
Well, no, not Jim. I don't think Jim had it there. I don't think
Where
so.
did his bus company?
He had the bus company, but he had it on Park Street behind his property. He and his father, Mike, Uncle Mike, used to be in the back end. And they had just big stalls in there, big garages.
What was it called? Canada Bus or
Um,
Canada Coach?
oh, God, what did they call it? It's in that little red book, and I can't remember what the name of the Jim's company was. He started the first bus line anyway from Dundas to Hamilton.
Did you ever take that bus?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't know how to get on a bus now. They tell me I have to have tickets now to go, and seniors, you got to go someplace to buy them. And I said, oh, I used to go for a nickel. I used to put a nickel in the slot and go. They can't do that anymore. They don't do that. Won't accept the nickel. And if the bus driver knew you didn't have to pay at all. He'd just say, oh, come on, get on the bus.
Did you know any of the bus drivers? Did you ever get that?
Yeah, I didn't know the bus driver. They were all friends of my father's, and at that time the town wasn't very big, and they all, as they used to say, they used to drink together, they smoked together, they worked together, they played together. Everybody knew everybody's kids. Oh, well, he didn't work this week. Let him get on the bus. They'll go in. But my cousin, Jim, he and his father, they built the first bus line that went into Hamilton. You've heard about them over here at the museum. The Warnick girls and Dubois.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's Joni's, or not Joni's, Louise's husband. Louise and Helen died, so that was the Warnicks. And she had in Hamilton. What was her business?
Vicar Warnick's Safety Supply House.
I don't know what it was. Construction stuff, wasn't it?
How did the arena get built? How did the Dundas Arena get built? That was Dundas Arena.
Jim built the Dundas Arena. Well, yeah, he was part of that. He built that out by Mill Street. And it got started after the war, as I said. As soon as the war was over, people got back to normal a little bit, and those that thought that they should do things, get the kids together again in the town, get the town working. And he was very good. He was excellent. What he made on the bus service going into Hamilton, he made himself a well-established businessman. And he spent his money around here at the golf course in Dundas and the arena and the church and the school. I mean, the man did a lot of good work. And
Dundas, in the early years when Mom's talking, seemed to grow and expand based upon people in the town getting together.
yeah,
And pitching in together and donating together, and that none of it ever went, to the tax base. None of it ever went to, say, the provincial government for a grant or the federal government. Dundas was built by people.
It's like a community.
A very community effort.
yes, always. Always Dundas that way. But then, after the Second World War, I don't know, a lot of new people came into town. They had different ideas. And the old people, naturally, it's normal, they don't like it. We don't like it. I can see the reason why we don't like it, but I also can see why we have to have it. You can't flourish if you don't. You don't grow. You get left behind.
What was shopping like?
Hmm?
When you were growing up, what was the shopping like in Dundas? Like today, everybody goes to a supermarket.
Grafton's. Grafton store for clothing and of that nature, warehousing and materials and textiles and things like that. And then you'd go to the grocery stores that were run by the Powell Company and individual grocery stores. Well, this guy, they'll deliver your groceries for you. Just phone them in, tell them what you want. They'll let you know 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingies, and all that kind of thing. And you'd get your groceries sent to you. There's a business there yet, and I still say it's there for Dundas if somebody would just pick up on it and do home delivery. I don't know whether Peconi's still do it or not. Do you know?
I don't know.
Because there is a job right there in Dundas. Somebody that wanted to have a couple of trucks, and people phone their orders in, have a little store, or you have your house to start with. You have to. There's a lot of people that would love to have their groceries brought to their door rather than have to get dressed up and go out and do all the things you're supposed to do. Because you don't only buy groceries, you end up buying other stuff. That stops the shoppers. But, you find ways to do that too.
What was your industry like? Did you have industry back then?
Had which?
Industry?
Not really. Not much.
Valley City?
Valley City Manufacturing, yes. That was about it.
Do you know much about, there was Leonard's?
Oh, Leonard's Mill, yeah. Oh, God. Leonard's Underwear.
Where the condo apartments are now on John Street.
Yeah,
Leonard's Mill there.
that's about it.
They were good friends. And young John, like your age,
Yeah.
used to hang out with you to do politics. But
There's not many of the Leonards around right now, is there? Left. That I know of. I think John and Kathleen are both gone. Oh my God, they were younger than me, and they're gone. Anyway, there's a lot of them that don't know much about Dundas, but you have to think about it. I sit and think about it if I want to think about it enough.
we had Leonard's Mill, which was a big.
Hmm?
Leonard's Mill was a big.
Oh, it was.
Big factory. It employed
Yes, yes.
girls.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few girls who worked there. Yeah.
And on the spinning school.
Yeah.
I've heard
Then there was the cotton mill, which is
Oh, that was ancient.
the cotton mill was just over here, kitty corner. To
Yeah, but it sat idle for years. And that's where your new people come in. when they come into Dundas. And they were good buildings and everything, of course.
See, most people work in Dundas, who
Yeah.
in Dundas back then. Today, there's nothing here.
Yeah. You had to have a self-sustaining industry.
Oh, yeah.
Back
It-
then, Dundas was ahead of Hamilton as far as being the hub of.
Oh, yeah, that was a big gripe. You should have, that was fun. Now, that centennial that I worked on in 1947, it was our 100th year anniversary. And we didn't proclaim being a town or a city till the year after. Hamilton beat us to it. Oh, you never heard anything like it in your life. Everywhere you went, it was just the topic of conversation. We were slow. They beat us through it. And I worked on that. It was fun. I worked on billeting of the people that came into town, to find places to stay overnight and that sort of thing. Oh my God, it was hilarious. It was beautiful. It was something they'll never do again. I don't think they'll ever see it again. I know I won't, but I don't think people are interested like that. But they opened up this town and it went. And I don't know I think it was Bobby Hunter was the mayor at the time.
You often said that Dundas was trade on trade on trade.
Yeah.
Every week there was a trade in Dundas.
Yeah.
Where today, that doesn't happen.
It was a cozy little town. Quiet little town. Until we started wrecking it up, pulling it apart.
Still cozy town.
That was the fun things. I can remember when they put the 102 highway in. I was part of that.
Coots Drive.
Oh, okay, there we go. How were you a part of that?
Well, they were putting it in, and they were deciding whether it was going to go or not. Well, they finally decided, yes, we're going to put it in. So they had asphalt, new asphalt laid. And the whole thing was just ready for the big opening services and the opening day celebration they were going to have. I shouldn't tell that because I was part of it. The priest came to the school to find out who were the ones that went down the highway, 102 highway, and left all those marks on the new asphalt. And I thought, oh God, Vicar Gale, he's going to really give us, what. And I said to the girl, three girls there was, and a couple of boys. And we all had roller skates. And we had heard about it the day before in school, that they were going to have the grand opening. So the kid says, oh, gee, we got to go and see that. Oh, well, we can't get off school to go and see it, so we weren't going to be left out. So we all got together and we got our roller skates on. And at night we used to skate after supper all over town. Because, the hot town was about 3,000 people. You knew everybody in Dundas. And we put our skates on. And we all went down the 102. Monday morning, the priest comes to the school. The girl wants to know, who are the people that marked the asphalt? Of course, we all looked. I didn't know anything about it. I don't think they ever found out who we were that did it. We never said anything. We all said, silence, let's not let them know. They were going to give us the whatsoevers for going down there.
Why did they go after the Catholic school?
Well, he went because Vicar Gale was the boss. He went. Yeah, he went there. And the other schools, the principals were.
They must have asked too.
Oh, yeah. But these girls, and the boys that went with us, we were all Catholic kids. We were little buggers, I guess. Anyway, we went down there and left the marks on with our skates on the new asphalt. It hadn't settled. They weren't going to have that opening. They weren't going to have it. They couldn't have it with all those marks on it. Brand new pavement. I remember coming home from school and my mother says, "Where did you go skating last night or yesterday?" And I said, "Oh, out around town like we always do." I thought, oh boy, she knows. She must have heard. Somebody's told her. I wasn't going to tell her. I knew I'd be grounded for life. So I said, "Well, we just skated around town." "What'd you do?" "Well, we skated around town. See who would go the fastest down this street and down the other one." Some of them had dips and dangs, and concrete wasn't that good, and it was ready to be picked off anyway and put new down. But we thought, that beautiful flat land, and it was just smooth and not a car in sight. You didn't have to worry. You just went. It was beautiful. And we skated all the way down, right out to the end to Hamilton and back. And boy, we went home and we said, "Don't say anything, don't tell anybody we did that." I often wonder if those girls, I don't know if there's any of them left. 3. No, I don't think there are. I think they're all gone.
Just you. Where did you swim
Swim?
in Dundas?
Oh, I swam up at the end of the raceway at the high school, the bridge up there in the hole, where all the pea factory from up in Greensville dumped their pea juice.
Where this is at district school?
Yeah, district.
Where the water comes down underneath the railway? They call it the rate. The kids call it the raceway.
Yeah.
Because
We used to go up there and swim. Had the hole down at the bottom. At Tip Top Canners, they'd say, "Get out of the water, get out of the water, quick, quick." Because they'd let the pea juice from the factory that they had, and they did tomatoes and peas. That was it.
Greensville.
Yeah, in Greensville. And they let it come down through the ducts. Oh, God.
I've heard a couple of that.
What a smell. Oh. And we'd have to get out of there in a hurry. And where was the other one we had? Well, we used to swim over the other side of the railway tracks at the bridge too, but mostly down there. And at Hope Street, they swam at Hope Street too. And Creighton Road.
Yeah.
They swam at all the Spencer Creek. There was pots of it. Holes here and holes there, and dammed it up, played whatever you could there, and went over there to get clay. I remember that in high school. The first year I went to high school, you went over there to get your clay to make a mask because we were doing art. Oh, and I hate it. And I hate it to this day. You had to play this horrible clay and make a mask like for Halloween. Oh, I hated it. Oh. My father says, "Come on, Hope, you're going over there." And I say, "Why? Do I have to? You gotta have it. You want the 10 marks. For a lousy 10 marks, we had to go over there and get our clay and muck it all up and make a face. Oh. I said, "It's easier to go and buy a Halloween mask and use it." But that wasn't going to be the way. And that did come out, didn't it? So we didn't get it done. And to me, it was crazy. I didn't like it.
Was Dundas also a military town?
Hmm?
Dundas was also a big military town.
Well, yes. But all towns are them when there's a war on.
Yeah. We had our own armories, which is still standing.
Well, that armories was built in the First World War. And then it caught fire and they had to fix it. And the armories now is a community center. So it went for something worthwhile. Money that people made in town. They had their different programs they'd use at the armories, and it We had good dances there during the war years.
Do you have any stories of those dances?
Mm.
Anyone you want to share? What was it like going to the dances during the war years?
Well, the war years were sad. They were sad. And when it was all over, it was nice to be able to go to a dance and have a big room like that, big hall to dance in. Beautiful dances they had, formal ones, really, just like they had in Hamilton. Only I think ours were better. I always thought that. And Walter's dad was a colonel of the regiment at one time there. And he used to have some pretty nice dances, really great, formal outfits. You don't see that anymore. And I don't think people understand what a formal dance is. They think if you put on a good suit and go, that's a formal dance. Oh no, you've got to have a tuxedo. You've got to have a top hat and tails. That was the style. But they don't do that anymore. We've lost a lot of it. There's nobody around that wants to be bothered. You have other things to do, quicker things. Things that don't take as much time. Used to have beautiful banquets in there too. But that's all closed out. Now they have it for a community center. I guess they use it quite a bit though. There's a lot of affairs go on in there now. The seniors, I understand, have quite a group going there. Now I don't belong to the Readers Group.
Why not?
I refuse to consider myself a senior. I am.
No, I'm saying it's...
I am, but I refuse to.
She just gave up her driving a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Independent. Bullheaded. Anything else you want to throw at me? I've never been able to go there.
What about the House of Providence?
Huh?
Yeah.
What about the House of Providence?
The House of Providence?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, I went there too from the time I was about 8 years old to play and sing to the old people because I had no money to go anywhere else. And they always gave me candy. So I'd go up there and sing. Keep them happy. And then they'd look for me. Yeah, they'd say, "Where's Edith today? Where's Edith?" And Sister Jerome would say, "Oh, I don't think she's coming today." Oh, then I'd show up at the door and I'd say, "Something is okay?" "Oh, yes, come on in." And the little old dolls, God loved them. They loved it. And then I'd go over to the men's section and see them and see what they were doing. Nosy little piece, you know. I had to know everybody. And I'd go in and Mr. Whiskers, I used to call him, Old Whiskers. He always had candy. Candy in his pocket. Peppermints. My mother says, "You don't take those, do you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" She says, "You shouldn't do that." She says, that's their candy. They're supposed to have that candy." I said, "Oh, well." They used to give it to me because I'd sing to them. I couldn't sing that well, but I'd sing anyway. Just kept them happy. Tell them stories. The women always wanted to hear the stories of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I'd tell them that, and oh yeah, they thought that was, and then I'd leave and go home. They used to keep me happy. Kept them happy. I know I had fun. So there's a lot of little things that kids didn't have. We didn't have money to play with and go here and go there. I mean, your show was only a nickel to go on an afternoon movie. We didn't have nickels. So we didn't go. We'd go and find some other way of playing and doing something. Kids they found ways of keeping themselves occupied. That's all. You had to keep out of the trouble. Is that your ready?
Yeah, Beverly did that.
Who? That's the way it goes anyway. I don't know. To me, Dundas will always be maybe a little bit behind some of the big cities, but it's home. It's home. And for what I'm telling you, you've probably heard it all from all the rest of them anyway.
No, I keep getting new little things, and you lead me into new things, and not to mention the stories are your own, so I get to hear your own personal stories, which are the ones I like to hear.
That's me. I'm a gabby guts. I have to say things when I think of them. So just make sure you cut that stuff out. Because I don't think I want to read it. And it's just too bad I didn't have that. Mark didn't clue me in at all what I was going to be having here. I know. It's a bigger. I would have had that little book of mine of 1947, because that's where it's all in there, all these things that I know, and the few things that I did on my own. That's all. But
what's your favorite place in Dundas?
My favorite place?
Or one of them.
I think the Dundas Park. Because it centralized everything. Everything went on there. You had in those days, only the real rich people had cars. And when I was a kid, if you had a car, you were somebody. But, we didn't. For a while we did, and then we didn't, and then we did, and we didn't. But you'd pack your lunches up in 6-quart baskets, and Papa would carry one, Mama would carry another one. And if you had a wagon or a buggy, you put them in that, and away you go up to the park. Spend the whole day up there. Puddle around in the little pool and have your lunch. Oh, and you had ice cream, and you had all your goodies. It was fun. And people don't know how to get fun out of a thing like that. They don't understand it. But when you don't have money to go out and throw around like they do today, the young people, you look at them and you think, well, why do you have to have the money? Just go and play. I don't know how. They're squawking. They want something. They got to buy something. Well, when they start squawking, they go home.
Do they have band concerts you to go listen to?
Oh, yeah, the band concerts, everything. Like your BIA that we have now here. I can't buy it. That's terrible. I know. That's not being a good Dundasian. But I'm used to it all being up in the park. Everybody's together. You're not on the King Street in Dundas. That's Highway 8 to me. And you don't have the grass. You don't have the fun. You don't have the baseball. That's all we had up at the park. That's my idea, where that should be up there. But the storekeepers don't want that, and I understand that. Because if you bring them into town, they'll buy. If you don't have something like that, they're not going to go up to the park and spend a day. They got cars that can go anywhere. It wasn't like in our day, you didn't have them. Everybody didn't have cars. So you were glad just to go to the park, and all the storekeepers that had clothing or whatever, just like a Midway they have at the exhibition, all set up in tents. Oh, you have a heyday. We used to think it was great. I had one old man that lived near us, and he used to look for me at every one of the, like, Civic Holiday and Labor Day and 24th of May. The storekeepers would pack their stuff up in trucks and go up there and put their tents up and sell the stuff, just like a Midway. I used to think that was wonderful. I couldn't believe it. I said, it's all in one spot.
concert band, didn't they?
Hmm?
Didn't they have a concert band?
Oh yeah, the concert band, and then they practice up at the park in the
Old band?
cupola up above the refreshment store, the little store downstairs. They at the top of the stairs they had like a little, oh I don't know what did they call it? What'd they call that thing? They'd all stand there and play.
The little booth where the refreshment booth in the park now
Yeah.
was rebuilt. Prior to that, it had an upstairs to it, an open air, just like a band shell.
Yeah.
Then there was a modern band shell built where the new one is now. There was a modern one that was there before that they tore down. But,
And that was where, and then they'd have a contest, beautiful girl contest, and then they had baseball games. Everything was in the park. Everything.
this would be every week.
Your busker fests and your hot dog stands and bingo. We used to call it housey housey.
Why'd you call it housey housey?
Same as bingo. Housey housey. Then you'd say housey housey, and we used to all laugh because this one chap, he was a storekeeper in town, and he stuttered something fearful. Oh my God, it was awful. And he'd get up there, and he'd be the caller off, and he'd call these names off. And he'd say, when it came to 66, he'd say, clickety-click, clickety-click, and everybody would just crunch. And then he'd come to the 90, and he'd say, the top of the house, 90, and he'd woo up in the air. Oh my God.
Where
You could,
did the housey come from?
I don't know, it's an old saying of playing bingo. It's the same thing. Boy, you'd get 10 pounds of sugar and you'd get a toaster. Honestly, believe me, the people they'd pay 10 cents to play. And then they'd get rid of all these things that were donated. The storekeepers would take their stuff up there and sell it. But they don't want to do that anymore. But they're missing something because everybody's together. The stores closed up. They left them open in the daytime. They'd have somebody come in and look after the stores just in case they might sell something. Just might. And then by 6 o'clock they'd close, and they'd all go up to the park and have their supper. Hot dog stands. Hamburgers weren't too popular at that time. There was mostly hot dogs. But ice cream cones and all that kind of thing. A little variety of everything.
Back in your day, you had a lot of people at your age. You had nicknames for everybody.
Oh, yes.
What were some of the names?
Oh,
They were funny. Like we wouldn't have them today.
I don't know. Mark, you're asking me something I shouldn't even talk about.
Why?
Oh, Christmas. They're terrible names. We knew them.
You had Whipper Bellardo or something.
Whipper used to come down to the school and pick us up. He picked me up so China Doll wouldn't beat the hell out of me.
China Doll. Who was China Doll?
Mildred Persiana. Whipper would say, never mind, Edie, I'll come and get you. And he'd come down in his father's car. He wasn't at school. He'd left school by then. And he had to go to work, so he wasn't working. So his father would let him have the car to come down and pick up his sister and brother. And, of course, he always picked me up so China Doll wouldn't punch the hell out of me going home. She used to give me the stomach because I beat her in school. Oh, yeah. She was first and I was second, and if I came first, I had to watch it. I was ready for a good fight. She was going to beat the hell out of me going up the street. So Whipper saw it one day, and he says, come on, Edie, get in the car. And I said, oh, God, okay. Oh, well, she knocked the stuffings right out of me. And she was a little,
What other nicknames were there?
Ah,
in your group?
I don't know. God, it was awful. Anyway, Whipper, and there was a lot of them there. Demarches, they were all Italian boys, girls. Had a lot of them there. Well, we only had 3 classes in 3 rooms of a class in that school, from grade 1 to grade 1 to grade 8. We didn't have kindergarten, and when you were in 3, 4, and 5, 3, 4, and 5 would work together. By the time you had it in grade 3 and you repeated it in grade 4, then by the time you got into grade 5, what am I sitting here for? You know, I've done that. I did that for 2 years because the teachers would say to you, well, you do your work for your grade so you know, but when you're finished, if you want to, you can do your homework. Well, kids you couldn't keep them quiet, so she used to just teach them all together, all at once. So by the time you got to grade 6, you were smart. You were at the top of the class. You'd heard it for 2 years. It never changed. It was always the same. And then that was the way they did it. So, 3 little rooms in a school, and that was all the kids in Catholic school, kids in Dundas went there. And you filled the school.
Did the Catholics and was it the Protestants? Sorry, was there ever any?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it still is. Don't ever think it isn't, because it is. It's still there. You didn't mix well with them.
But you married a Protestant.
Hmm?
But you married a Protestant.
Yeah. Well, I got fed up with the rest of them. I'd had them for 6, 7 years, 8 years in school. I didn't need them anymore. Yeah, Walter and I.
How did you meet Walter?
Yeah, I don't know.
How did you meet him?
How did I meet Walter? Well, I don't know. He knew me before I knew him, but that's all right. He was on the guard at Dundas, at the armories at the time when the war broke out. And young people couldn't find jobs. And he was 18 years old. And he and Johnny Williamson were both together. And Walter's dad was the colonel of the armories at the time. So Ottawa figured you should surround your armories in case of an attack. Well, I don't know what they were going to attack. I've often wondered what they thought, but people say, oh, that's the armories, they got ammunition in there. They could blow the town up. Well, the people got scared. So, just at that age, we weren't back in the 1800s. We were in 19s and going on to the 20s. Anyway, I didn't think of that at the time, and I thought, oh, this is kind of stupid. What are they talking about? Oh, well, they had to have protection for the armories because the boys couldn't find jobs. So government in those days said, well, train your men, train the fellows to be soldiers. Give them something to do. They used to have a Tuesday night and a Friday night soldiers. And I used to say to Walter, after I knew what he was doing on those nights, before I knew him, he said, oh, that's what we used to do. He says, I did those from the time I was 14 years old. I said, what in God's name were you doing in the armories at 14? Oh, well, my father figured that was a good way to make a man out of you. I said, did it? No. I said, well, I rest.
How did you meet him?
So then this is where he came in, and I said to him, I was going downtown to get 10 cents worth of hamburger at the hamburger store, A&P. And he thought, well, Johnny Williamson, the other guy that was with him on the guard, he was going with a girl from my class in high school. And he says to Johnny, well, you know, we ought to go out some night together. You got a girlfriend, I have to get one. Well, Walter, he didn't know who he wanted to go with and who he was going to get. So Johnny says, why don't you go and take Edie? And he says, who's she? Oh, yeah. He says, I know who you mean. Oh, well, I'll see. So he says, well, she goes down here every night after school to get 10 cents for a hamburger. That was depression, you see. So you'd get 10 cents a hamburger and take it home. So when I was going home one day, he came out on the sidewalk and he says, are you going anywhere special? And I said, yeah, I got to get home. I got to take this home. He says, how would you like to go to a show? Show? Where? What are you talking about? So he told me. And I said, oh, no, my mother wouldn't let me go to a show. I couldn't go out with a boyfriend. She'd have a fit. So, of course, I'm only 14. So he didn't like that. We're going on 15 almost. And I said, no, I don't think my mother would let me go. Oh, that's all right. He said, I'll come over and ask her. I said, oh, no, you can't do that. I said, if you do that, I'll get into trouble. What are you getting into trouble for? I says, well, because I'm not supposed to talk to you. My mother says, you stay away from those soldiers. Because everybody knew they were the soldiers that were going to be in the war. Well, that didn't mean anything to me. I'm just a kid, so I thought, well, I said, no, my mother won't let me. He says, I'll come over. I said, no, you can't do that. I said, I'll get into trouble if you do. Well, why? And I told him. He says, why does she feel like that? I said, I don't know. That's just what she said. I wasn't to be around you soldiers. So I said, you better not. Oh, no, he says, I didn't think he would. Sure enough, he come over that night, and he come over, he rapped on the door, and I said, what are you doing here? He says, I come over to see your mother. I told you I was coming over. And I said, I told you not to. He says, oh, I didn't care. He said, I thought I was going to take you to the show. Johnny and Wilma are going, and he's going to take Wilma, and I thought you'd go with me. He says, Johnny's got his dad's car or something. And I said, okay. I said, well, Mom says, who's that? And I said, oh, it's just somebody, Greenie. Greenie? Who's Greenie? I said, just Greenie. And she says, well, why don't you ask him in? And I asked him to come in. I didn't even know what his right name was. I didn't even know it was Greenwood. But that was all. Wilma said, oh, that's Greenie you're going to go with, and I'm going to go with Johnny. So I said, okay. That's how I met Walter, around the armories. By the time I was 16, we were getting married because he was going to go overseas. Didn't want to leave me home alone and had to do something. He says, well, you know, if we get married, your mother lets us get married. I said, get married? Why? He says, well, you'll have some protection because people weren't working. Work was terrible. Parents weren't working, you know, you just didn't have a job. And there was no work in the town. Town was dead. So he says, when we get married, he says, you can have my paycheck. I said, I can? How am I going to get that? You're overseas? How am I going to get the money? And he says, oh, don't worry about that. He says, my dad says that the women are going to have their paycheck sent to them from the government. And you got so much a month. And I said, oh. I said, but we're not married. He says, yeah, but he says, if we get married, then he says, you'll have some money. And you can save it for me. When I come home, we'll be able to have our own place. That's how I met Walter. I thought, oh, God almighty, what did I do that for? You know, you were hungry. You didn't have...
New Year's Eve.
Eh?
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve was
Well, Mark, you do funny things at times. So, poor old Walter, we were married and that was it. And then he didn't go overseas. So then we moved back to Dundas. And I've been here ever since. And I don't want to go anywhere else. It's home. I just hope that the family that we started here, we've got 3 boys. I hope they're all happy. They're all living in Dundas, so they must be happy. I'd hate to see them move out, but you never know. There's a lot of potential here in Dundas if they want to go for it. But it depends on what you're getting into, what your feelings are for your town and that. At one time, I was glad to get out. I wanted to go. I didn't want to come back. In fact, I didn't want to come back to Dundas. I got into the big city.
You wanted to see Toronto.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. I wanted to go just somewhere. Didn't want to just stay in Dundas. And then when I came back, I'm stuck here now. I couldn't go away if I wanted to. I just couldn't. It's my home, and it's been good to me. I've had a lot of heartache and a lot of good times, but it's good to me, and I like my town. I like to see it go, but I'd like to see them, and I know I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. I still think the Busker Fest would be better up in the park. I mean, the storekeepers can have it in the daytime and make their money as much as they can.
Cactus Festival.
Hmm?
What about the Cactus Festival?
Same thing, the Busker Fest, the Cactus Festival, and all that. It should be up in the park, not on your main street. You like it there. You can go from store to store. I know. I understand that. But I also understand what it's like up in the park. Everybody's together. You aren't on King Street. It's just a stretch. But up there, you're in a cove. You're circled. There's bad parking up there, but it's not any worse than downtown. Downtown, you can't find a place to park at all, anywhere. You just go crazy down there. Up there, you can go up and you can take your lawn chair and you can put it on the grass and sit there if you want to. You know, I still think that's a better place to have it. Just like the old House of Providence. They used to have it out on their grounds up there, and they used to, on the 1st of July, they'd have a lovely carnival, as they called it, their fundraiser, money deal. And people came from all over to go there. Now they have it all inside. I haven't been to it yet. Doesn't appeal to me. Outside it was nice. And it went from just one day, the 1st of July, and they went from, about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. And they had everything. They had tents up there all around the whole building. Different churches that came.
Call it the House of Providence Picnic.
Yeah, House of Providence Picnic.
And where Ogilvy Street comes up the hill, that was all
Yeah.
sisters' land. It was all part of the House of Providence.
All those Parliament, all those big buildings and condos and that. That's where they owned it. And it was beautiful. He used to go up there and sell tickets at the penny sale. Florence. You in Florence. Yeah. It was like history repeating itself. He was the only one of the 3 that did that. The other 2 didn't do it, but Mark did. And I used to laugh about it because he was a kid from St. Paul's United Church going up, standing on their penny sale booth, selling penny sale tickets for the Catholic Church. I used to say to my mother-in-law, what in God's name is he doing up there? And then, of course, I found out that the lady that liked him up there was a cousin of my husband's, and she used to come down to the house and she'd look for him. He was about, what, 8 years old?
Maybe, I don't know.
Well, you weren't anymore.
Yeah.
And she'd say, where's Mark? Where's Mark? And I'd say, oh, he's out there side play. Well, I'm going to take him with me up to the House of Providence. And I'd say, what for? Oh, I'll give him something to do. She says, I'll give him something to play. He'll have fun. She used to stand him up on the booth and have him sell tickets like this. So he's had a grounding in all these things. I think that's one of the reasons I don't know, I thought I should give it up before I started doing it with the grandchildren. I don't think they'd appreciate it. But it was fun. I always like doing things that are fun. I like volunteer work. You're not committed, but you are. But you don't have to be, but you feel you should. You got to think about it. There's a lot of fun in it.
You
You don't
did
have-
March of Dimes for years, didn't you?
Hmm?
You did March of Dimes for years?
Oh, God, yeah. 4 years, 4 years I did that for the town. Did Red Cross.
You got involved in the scouting.
Oh, scouting. Yes, I've done that. Swimming pool.
The indoor swimming pool.
Yep. You had me into that. Yakking over.
Walkathon of 25 miles.
Yeah, and he puts me in the car for the swimming pool, and he says, here, this is the microphone. I said, what am I supposed to do with it? He says, I want you to advertise it. Go, I'll drive the car and you talk.
And then she did the 25-mile walk herself.
Yeah. We had, you pushed a girl that was crippled, had been in an accident, car accident. He pushed her in the wheelchair all the way up the hill, going out of Dundas all the way up to,
Millgrove.
where was it?
Millgrove.
Millgrove, and cross Millgrove and back down over into Waterdown and into Dundas. And I'm following them, a bunch of kids.
Again, that was the way that Dundas did things, and we built the indoor swimming pool that way
Yeah.
through the walkathon.
We had fun, though. I never regretted it. I loved it. I had fun. And the kids' house was full of kids all the time. Always there. Mark always had a he had a car called the Pink Panther. A pink car he painted. A pink car. I can't believe it yet. A pink car. And it was hilarious. Everywhere he went, everybody knew him. Oh, here comes the Pink Panther, and he had these decals on it. And what'd you have on it? The Road Runner, and
Oh, I don't know. It was just the 60 era. I grew up in the 60s, so.
it was fun. And well, what was it? Mom wasn't alive then, was she?
Mm-hmm.
Or was she? I've forgotten. Oh, I guess it was her then. She used to say, "What's Mark doing? He's got a pink car." And I'd say, "Yeah, he's got a pink car." Where did he buy a pink car? I don't know. He bought it. It's what he wanted. Had this pink car. And he and the girl, and he always had these girls that would do anything he wanted them to do for him. He'd go, they'd take them in the car, and then he'd say, well, we gotta have it painted. It's gotta have paint. So this one girl, she worked at the Canadian Tire. She got the paint for you, wasn't it?
That was
Barb.
China Doll's daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. And they painted the car pink. I couldn't believe it when I saw it coming in the driveway. I thought, oh my God, because he said to me, what color do you think a car should be? I said, I don't know. What color do you like? And he says, I don't know. I said, oh, pink will do. Why don't you color it pink or something? So a friend of Walter's that he grew up with, He named it the Pink Panther. Well, that was hilarious. Everywhere. They knew where Mark was. Everywhere he went because of the pink car. Nobody had a pink car in Dundas. And all these things on it. Oh, my God. I got in it one day and I thought, oh, I don't believe this. What else are we going to get into? What else did you do to me? Oh, yeah, I've got you now. You're another one I'm going to add to it. What else did you do?
Not much. You worked on the post office rural routes for a number of years.
Oh, God, yes.
Did, politics for a long time.
Yeah, politics. I had a lot of that. Yeah, I had that. I went with the post office with the two of you, you and your brother, John. John first, and then you. And I didn't drive. They used to leave my arm in the mailbox.
She did rural route. Two of them. And it was just for the fun of it. And so we would drive, and she would put the mail in all the boxes. That's all out through the country.
And then you know what I got for my prize for doing all that? He'd buy me a Sherbicle up at the Fulton store.
Oh, yeah.
That was my payment.
Nice cream bar.
Every day I got a Sherbicle. So that was fun. But I never hated it. I loved it. I loved all that nonsense. The kids were great. There was always a bunch of kids around. John and Mark both all had kids around there. The house was coming in and going out. I said, oh, I don't know who it is. And Mom Walter's mother used to say to me, we lived with her, and she used to say, who's that coming in? I'd say, I don't know. Who will see who when they get in here? They know. And the dog would stand at the door, and this one boy that would come, he just loved our little Cocker Spaniel. And that dog's tail would just wag like that, and I knew who it was there. He knew it, because he talked to me. He'd say, Buffy, it's Roy, Buffy. And Buffy would, and I think, oh, that's all right. He can come in. So it was open house for a lot of kids, and we had fun. Never regretted it. I always enjoyed it. A lot of kids around.
You would count the number of shoes at the bottom of the...
Oh, my God, the shoes.
Sunday morning, just to see how many people
Oh,
had stopped over.
I often,
Nice.
you pick the first ones that fit, you wear them. But they were good kids. Never had any trouble with them. Never had. Kids didn't, well, I thought they were good kids anyway. I'll leave that for another day. But they were. I never had any trouble with them. No fighting, no problems. They had great times. I think they enjoyed every bit of it. But I'd like to live them over again. And what I know now, if I could apply it then, I would love it more because it was fun. It was fun. And some of the boys that went to school with Mark or went to Mohawk, they'd come around in the daytime and I'd be there all by myself and they'd say, what are you doing, Grandma? And I'd say, oh, nothing, just sitting here. I want to go play golf. I said, play golf? Why? Yeah, sure. Where are you going? Oh, we're going up to your club. He says, would you want to come? He says, this one boy, and he says, I got, he had his own car then, didn't he, Roy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He came with his own car. He didn't have yours. David had it. And he come in, he says, I said, well, who's going? He says, just you and me. I said, just you and me. He said, yeah. He said, I want to learn to play golf properly. I said, well, you play golf anyway. You just hit the ball and let it go. He said, I know, but he's just, I want you to come with me. So I used to go up and play golf with him in the afternoon. He'd be out of school, and it was fun.
Then you started a tournament,
Yeah, oh, we had golf tournaments up there. Yeah.
your own tournament.
You remember better than I do, Mark. We had great times. Oh, yeah, you all brought your groups. There's a lot of them.
Girls from the office in high heels trying to play golf, you know.
Couldn't tell them, you know. Some of them took their shoes off and went in their bare feet, and that bothered me because I thought, you know, you don't know what you're going to get on your feet. But, oh, God, they were funny. And they all came back for dinner, come back to the house. Walter would say, well, we're going to have the Greenwood tournament. And I didn't know we were going to have it like that. I just asked the people that owned the place, you know, could we have the golf course? We wanted to bring some kids up to play, and some of the workers that my boys had. John had some from the post office, and he had them from DeFasco, and Bill bought his from the fire department. So by the time you got them all together, you had a good group. You had a good many to play. So Walter said, what are you going to do with them all? And I said, well, he said, you're going to pay for the dinner up there? I said, no, I'm not paying for the dinner. I said, I'll cook a turkey and a ham, and we'll have it here at the house. So they all came back to the house, but when we came back to the house, we didn't only have all the gang with us, but the ones that were oddballs that played by themselves the odd time. We knew them from up there at the golf course, but they never played with anybody. They came, they played with whoever was there, but they never came with anybody to play. So a couple of them used to say, well, do you need any more to make a foursome? And Walter would say, oh, sure, do you want to play? And I'd say, yeah, come on, let's play. He'd say, oh, yeah. There's two of us out here, we're going to play. These two fellows would play in our group. We didn't know them, but they came back for dinner, come back to the house anyway. And the one fella had a cap on, a hat on, and he had pop cans, wasn't it, or beer cans? He had stuck in the knitted one. Do you remember that? Oh, yeah. And it was the craziest looking thing you ever saw in your life, but he wore it to get a laugh. I never saw anything like it. I said, where did you get a hat like that? I made it, he says. And these kids will all come back to our house and play. Had a good time. Barbecue out in the backyard sometimes just, it was easier to put a turkey in the oven stuffed and a ham, and then I wouldn't have to worry about it. It would cook all day. And then we'd come home and they'd pitch in. And then some of the older ones would play with us, some of them that didn't want to go home. They were fed up. You know, their children weren't there and that. And then Walter would say to them, oh, come on our house, we're going to have dinner. Who's all going to be there? Oh, all the gang. So then they got to the habit, well, we'll bring something too. So we had a potluck with it. They all brought something. So we had a great time. It was fun. And I like things like that. I like groups to come together and play and enjoy it. That's what life's all about. If you don't enjoy it, no fun. Not yet. There's no happiness there.
Do you have any more questions? Because I'm almost...
You can go through your stuff.
Oh, most of the questions end up getting covered is
Oh,
what
wow.
happens. It's just
Okay.
a talk about the town, and then I'm just going to figure it out. And I really just have these sheets here just in case. It's, yeah.
You got something, anything you want to talk about, Mom, about Dundas?
Nope.
It's
It's my town, that's all.